All right, guys, I'll tell you what, it's 1 o'clock. Small but mighty group, I'm telling you, okay? See what happens when you go after lunch? I got to get people back in. So I'm going to get started. Some people may come in a little bit. The first part of it is just about an introduction of me and the center. So, hopefully they won't miss too much in that particular couple of seconds. But for those who aren't aware of the Small Business Development Center, my name is Chuck Edwards, and I'm the regional director of that Lubbock Center. Texas Tech hosts that center along with 5 others in the whole Northwest Texas Panhandle. So we have resources available to small businesses all throughout West Texas. Okay, and so one of the you'll see like everything in the yellow is our region. My center is Lubbock, but you'd mentioned David Smith in Abilene. We've got a place in Odessa. If you've got a family or friend or somebody you know in another location who wants to get some help with some small business matters, I hope they get tuned in with what we've got to offer, all right? One of the main things we offer that most people do not know about, I came in as the center director about 12, 14 months ago, and I thought, man, this is the best kept secret in town, and it really doesn't need to be, right? So we provide one-on-one confidential consulting. Okay, so that could be consulting with respect to marketing issues, or like we're doing now, or maybe it's a business plan. You're wanting to expand your business, or you need to just have some clarity around your financial statements. What you and I talk about, I may not be a lawyer and I'm not an accountant, but it is confidential. And I won't even let like a student be involved in a project unless I ask you first and let you know about that, right? And we take it very seriously, but it is meant to be, so you understand all your information you give me, financial information, right? I want you to know that whether it's a tax return or any other answer to any other question, we're not selling that information, we're not combining it and sending it to the IRS or the SBA or anybody. That is simply a way for us to collect data sometimes. So while we do not charge for any of our consulting, and primarily most all of our resources, we do sometimes request a survey. The information is aggregated out and we send it to the stakeholders that are interested, but it is a great resource. There's no limit to the amount of sessions you can have. So if you are just starting out and you got an idea and you need to figure out whether to work or not, we'll take you to all the different steps. Maybe get you from idea to actually open, or maybe from open, you've been open a while and you want to make some adjustments. We're all of those things for you, okay? Now, today, I want you to understand, like, you've got some great people on the marketing plan here, right? You got Taylor from this morning, you got Jillian, you got Jeffrey, right? They are fantastic at helping you understand the first part, the right message. I'm not that person, okay? My expertise is more on the business information, financial projection side, and I've never done a class like this before that drilled down to this kind of data. And I asked Heather when she asked me if I'd do this class, I said, here's the thing, I give business plan presentations pretty regularly, and I spend like 5 minutes on this, and always needs at least an hour or two, right? And I never really get to delve into it. So today we're going to delve into it. I'm not going to cover everything on the slides, but I want you, if something piques your interest and you want to know more, you can get a hold of our center and we'll discuss those other matters later. But the primary thing I want you to think about is, what information can you use? What do you have at your fingertips that can help you decide who you're going to go after and target? So it's about getting the right message to the right people, and the right people is where I'm at today. That's the part of this equation I'm trying to help make you maybe be aware of some things or consider some things in a different place. Now, the problem, part of your business plan. What's the problem you're solving, and what is the price? We'll go through all those matters in a regular business plan class or some other series that we may offer at the SBDC. But right now, I want us to think about the people, okay? So I can ask generally, hey, what's your target market? Everyone has at least a conceptual idea of what that means, right? It's like, these are the people who I think will use my service. These are the people I think that are most interested in what's going on. Or these are the people I want to try. They don't know how good this will be for them. I need to help educate them. And so there's always a conversation. When I start out with a client, I will start out and ask just general questions. I want to get their feel of what they know about their product, their service. And usually it starts out with, I loved it, or it works great, or I became familiar with it, or I worked at this place and it solved this problem, and everybody needs to know about it, right? I can share, I had an instance, I had many businesses for about 18 years or so, and there's a software program that I would travel the country and tell everybody how great it was, because it saved me so much in my business and was so efficient. So sometimes it starts like that, and sometimes it can just be a whole new idea. It doesn't have to be something that exists. But these questions are important to ask. So ask yourself this, kind of do your own little inventory about who do you think is going to want my service? Why do they want this? When are they going to want it? All those basic questions that you might, whenever you're trying to define. I would suggest, though, the part that most people don't recognize is you really can't be everything to everybody, right? So you can be very convenient. You can have a great price. You can have high quality. You could do maybe 2 of those things, but you cannot do all 3. You can't give them something very fast, very cheap, and top quality. It's not going to happen. So if somebody wants convenient and quality, they're going to pay a high price. Okay, if they want a cheap price, well, they're probably going to have to give up on quality, or it's going to take a while, whatever. So there's ways to think about what your service and your product, and I will share that one of the biggest challenges I have is when I'm talking is everybody wants to be everything to everybody. Right? It's a very strong tendency. I don't want to say no. I've got a plumbing business. I don't want to say no to somebody on the phone. I'm not suggesting you do that, right? I mean, absolutely take the business while it's there. But which people within the community are you going to focus your energy on to be able to locate, okay? And where are they at? And how do you get to them? Those are the kind of questions that you need to be asking, in addition to just who do I think is most interested in this project and in this particular. Now, we can use lots of different things to define a person. It could be their socioeconomic status. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's kind of share. I'm going to share this. One of the handouts has like one of the secondary sources that you can use. They'll sit there and give me all sorts of data about demographics, about the socioeconomic status, location, financial measures, and what they're doing here is helping you understand what does your client look like, okay? And what is it that we need to know about them to be able to get them to say yes and buy our product or our service, okay? But the biggest thing I want you to realize is you got to work against the common human tendency to want to please as many people as possible. You're not trying to turn down business, but you're trying to say, these are the people, these are my peeps, right? These are the ones that I need to make sure know about me and what I can provide. All right? So if you think about it visually, there's all the people at the top of the funnel, right? The ones on the bottom are the ones that are going to drive your bottom line. All right? You're not going to say no, the rest of them are going to be in the pipeline. You're going to take care of them. You might even find out that there's a couple of people in the top section you need to devote more time and attention to. They could end up being part of your bottom line. But when you're thinking about it visually, you can think of it as a funnel. I like to also kind of recognize you have a big circle, you have a big market that you can address, but then you probably don't really have that. You probably have a little bit smaller market that is more, kind of fine-tuned to the things that you need to know. And then really, truthfully, the market that you're going to reach may be quite small in comparison, all right? So, have you ever heard of these 3 terms? The TAM, SAM, and SOM, okay? Definitely, if you've been in some classes, it's going to come up. One is the total addressable market, okay? What is your serviceable addressable market? And what is your serviceable or obtainable market, okay? Kind of sounds like acronyms, but really what that it could mean lots of things, but in reality, what it is a device to help you understand where you're at, okay? And where your market is, where your people are at. I can give you an example as a case study that I was so proud of this young guy. He's a young guy, and he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. He'd been in a different industry his whole life. He was trying to do something with a young baby, and he said, look, I'm just really good at this kind of thing, and he wanted to do pool service. There's lots of instances where that's just not available. So his whole point was, well, what's my total market, right? So he went and he did some research, and he went and talked to the wholesaler, and he said there's like, 1,600 pools in the Lubbock and the surrounding area. And I was like, are you kidding? I had no idea there's that many pools, right? So he started out, his whole market might have been 1,600 pools. But he decided his serviceable addressable market was smaller. He didn't want old pools that were 30 years old that he'd have to fight with. He wanted new pools that had new equipment and that way he felt like that would be easy for him to do. Why? Part of the reason he wanted to do that is because he was going to have his other job, and for a while he was going to have to do stuff in the evening and on the weekend, and he couldn't get tied up into big projects and spend that. He needed to do the quick jobs and make people that service those particular people. So as we did this study and we went through this, he even went another level. He said, okay, that's great, new pool construction, new houses. He said, I'm really familiar with this one new subdivision that just was built. He goes, I wonder how many people in that area have new pools, right? So he looked, and there was more than I could have believed, right? So what he did though, is he spent his entire energy servicing 1 square mile. Everybody in that square mile know who he was. He would show up, they'd see him come by, he'd walk, he had particular clients that he serviced. And so he was able to, no one else in town knows about his pool service because he can't really handle a larger set of people. But it's completely changed he and his family's life, right? Because now he has more customers than he can just about fit into the thing. And if he ever wants to expand, he now knows how to hit a neighborhood and approach and meet those people. And he did all kinds of interesting ways to meet those people. Of course, the door hangers and things like that are part of the message program that somebody may use, but he went to neighborhood meetings, he went to he did all the things he needed for them to know who he was and what he offered as a service, okay? So this is part of what you're doing. So when I'm trying to get you to think about your message, I am not, as I mentioned, the person who's going to help you figure out the message or how the door hanger needs to look or how to maybe reach those people. But what I want to do is help you understand that for every 100 people you bring in, here's how much your revenue is going to be. This is why you want to spend that amount of time locating those people, right? And if you get to the point of understanding that, you're basically your acquisition cost for every person, all right, then it will help you drive growth down the road, but more importantly, it'll help you understand exactly what it takes operationally for you to be successful, okay? So that was one example, but everybody has a breakdown, whether they've thought about it or not, about where you're at, where are you, where's my main people? I'll tell you, one of the red flags I hear all the time, and this does not impress the bank, it might fly on Shark Tank because you only got a minute and a half, it's TV, right? But, my market is $50 billion and all I need is 1% of them and I'll be a millionaire, right? Okay, that's really not going to turn the heads of a bank or somebody investing in you, okay? They want to know there are 1,600 pools in Lubbock and there are 380 people in this neighborhood and every one of those 380 people know me. If you write that up in a business plan, you will get funded much easier than you ever would if you just kind of put, generally this is the neighborhood, like say travel industry is, a $27 billion thing in Texas. Okay, well, what does that mean for us locally, right? So my push today was to help you think about, there are all kinds of ways you can answer those questions. So devote your time to those activities and you're gonna be able to not only help improve your bottom line by finding the right people, but just help you have a better strategy moving forward, okay? So let's do a little exercise, right? Okay, because I have got more up here than we could ever cover. So I just want to ask, these are some target markets. If I surveyed some of the people that, some of my clients that come into the SBDC, what is the target market? Soccer moms, households that, between 50,000 and 100,000, let's say, okay? Homeowners. So tell me, does it look like your list of target customers? Sure. I mean, it's better than 1% of anybody, absolutely. But what else can we do with this list? So let's just take one, for instance, here. All right, healthcare employees. This is I have a client that I can tie with this one specifically, okay? So healthcare employees, is that a target? Absolutely, right? Can you reach healthcare employees all throughout Lubbock? There could be tens of thousands, right? By the time they add them all up, yes, absolutely. All right. So what else can we do to even be more specific? And how do we find out who the healthcare workers are in this town? Where do we go get that information?
You can break it down depending on what type of healthcare employee.
Okay, so maybe it's a dentist alone or clinics, or maybe it is, professional services at a hospital or something like that. Almost always, those groups will have their own trade associations, right? Or they'll have different ways they meet or come together. And so would it be better to say, I'm going to pay for it, it's going to cost thousands. I'm going to send out flyers and information and letters and have a whole campaign around 15,000 people, health employees in Lubbock. Well, you might end up with a good result. I'm not trying to, disparage the possibility that would happen, but that cost and the time to do that, if it was devoted to something different, like I'm going to make sure these 500 employees at these clinics I've met with. They know me. I've talked to them. They're aware of what I can do for them. And I can save them money with the software that I mentioned earlier, right? I can show them in 15 minutes how they will save time every day. So the manager is going to be happy because it's going to make things more efficient. The people are going to be happy because it's a less complicated way of doing things. And we're going to save money for that organization. So that, taking the time to find that smaller group of people. It's kind of like go as small as you can go, and then go a little bit smaller till it almost hurts, right? You know, and so you keep getting down to the smallest group. And if you spend your time on that small group, you'll have a greater level of success generally, right? Now you give certain things, you know, iPhones, they go to everybody. And there's certain kinds of products or things that are, you know, clearly can hit a bigger market. But most small businesses we deal with are 5 people or less. Right? They're providing a service, or they're doing something that is you know, intended for to meet a specific problem. So they need to go to where the customer is, right? So like in the instance where the person was doing the pool service, part of the reason he was able to get their attention, he went to them, right? He knew where they were at all times. Of course, he was going to do the work at their homes anyway. So he made it all about. He didn't need a storefront. He wasn't spending any money on anything except they could recognize it. They recognized his truck when they drove by. It had a fun picture of him and his kid and his wife, and you know, and they all knew all 3 of them. And it was like it was a relationship that he had with these people in that neighborhood. And they would, and even if somebody else came along tomorrow and tried to get their pool service needs met, he's already established such a connection that he's gonna win out in that case most of the time. Okay, now. So the healthcare example, I'll give you an example. I had a client, he was shifting his business and he was doing some specific kind of insurance related work, okay? And so he just happened to know somebody who was a pretty high decision maker in healthcare. So he went, and just as a matter of opportunity, before that, he was trying to just put his name out there to as many places as possible. He did all kinds of different benefits for them. And yeah, he had a business and it was successful. He was making some money. But then this one particular person asked him if he could help out his company. Well, he knew a lot about that industry because of his friend, about his own personal experience. And so he fine-tuned a message that really worked for them. Then he got to where he started doing more and more of that and less of the other. And now he's had to bring in 2 and 3 other people to do nothing but go to additional groups. And now, you know, his message is completely tailored to that group. I have another group that does federal benefits. They're like a little academy of sorts. They go from place to place and teach people about their federal benefits. They're all federal employees. They all already work for, you know, they don't have to find them. Then he goes in, does special workshops, teaches them some things about their benefits they don't know. So he's not trying to be all over the place. He's finding this is what I'm going to get good at. And it's all about, if you have any sessions with me usually, it doesn't take long for me to tell you, it's about finding a path, find that path, and run down that path every day, right? So you don't have to go find the new path every day. You make most of your energy needs to be spent on the most profitable directions you got. So now here's the thing about a target. I'm trying to get you to fine tune this dramatically. Hispanic community, okay? That's completely a subsection that you could kind of focus on. But you might have all kinds of other subsections underneath that, right? So maybe it's football fans, or or maybe it's whatever, right? Certain types of cuisine or something, and you're going to go after people that maybe they enjoy a particular hobby. So you're trying to make a connection between a hobby and that other big group. Well, every time you can slice it down a little bit more, and you can find those people, right? Because that's not a simple thing sometimes. But those are the people that you go back to. Now, you've done that. Now, can you make an entire business on clinic healthcare people, workers? Maybe, but maybe not. So maybe that has to be one of your targets. I would suggest generally you can have 3 or 4 or 5 targets, and you have different campaigns and different approaches to reach each and every one of them, right? And you only have so much energy, so you want to find the one that works the best, or the first one that's working the way you want, and you wear that path out as much as possible, and then you test out other things. It's all about testing. I'm suggesting that is going to be in my last slide. The last thing I say is a test and measure. Amazing how many people I know will spend, well, I spent $5,000 and went out on some TV ad. Maybe I did some social media stuff. Well, how did it work? Well, I don't really know. I mean, I got more business. Okay, but what worked? Maybe it was the social media that was free that you got that really worked. Or maybe it was the TV ad and you need to double down and do 2 more of those because that got the attention that you wanted. Or maybe it was the radio ad during the sports program that really got people to you. You don't know if you just kind of throw it out there and see what happens, right? So you want to make sure everybody has limited resources, that you're taking advantage of that time. Now, so this is targets, and we all can see where we might want to reduce those. So let's flip it around, okay? What is your product, okay? I got a few up here, but does anybody have a business in here that's selling a product? Okay, I know that. So what is your product?
Natural products.
Okay.
Deodorant.
Natural products, deodorant. I know what yours is.
Meat.
Meat, okay.
I have
2 business. Okay, very good. Okay, I didn't know that, so I learn something every day. All right, so let's take your customers. What is your customer you're going to try to go for? Your primary person.
Natural, non-toxic products.
Okay, and so that's the product. Which customer do you think is most likely to find that a product they want to buy?
More natural-minded, yoga, fitness enthusiasts.
Okay, so
like that.
maybe you're going to start out and hunt down the yoga, fitness studio places and say, hey, I want to put out some samples. I'm going to come to the classes that you have. I want to let them know about my product. And so that you're going to go to where they are and try to reach as many people as possible. Do they have Facebook groups where people talk about different exercises and things that work? Get part of those groups. Ask permission to be part of those groups. You don't want to make it a sales call because you want them to feel like you're part of their world, but you're not there to just make a sales call. But the more of those connections you can make. What about meat? Tell me a little about your target. Where do you think your target customer is?
right now it's been food banks and large wholesale for supplementing food for people that are having trouble getting meals right now.
Okay, so see, now think about that. If somebody just said, hey, I sell meat products, you could have thought a lot of different directions that people may go with that, but she has a very specific market that she is fine-tuning her strategies around so that they can be to as many people as possible. Her goal is to have that product in as many people as possible, and in turn, she gets to help a lot of people who might be struggling to find enough to eat at the moment, right? So you can do this with any one of these kind of topics, right? So meal kits, a meal kit, speaking of meat, that's why I kind of brought it up. That could be a meal kit that you provide, and your whole business is dealing with busy families, and it's a 1-week thing, and it's simple and 15-minute kind of meals, right? Or it can be high-end meal kits where people can get top-of-the-line types of gourmet meals that they would never make on their own because it's too expensive to buy all the specific ingredients. And so those are the people. So it's more of a luxury item, right? It's more of like a fun activity for maybe the 50-plus to do. It's a different market altogether. So you may have a product that markets one group in one case, and maybe another product that you're going to try to market someone else. It's okay, that's completely reasonable, but at the meantime, you don't want to feel like you're trying to be everything to everybody. It's like, what does that person need to be able to get from me so that they'll become a customer of mine, all right? So now let's think about your target. I want to just ask, here's some of these are local. So who do you think the target customer is for Tesla? They just opened up in Lubbock about a year ago, whatever. Now there's Teslas here. Who is their target customer? You got an idea?
Higher income, environmentally friendly folks.
Okay. So those people may have a degree, they may not. You can kind of do all kinds of searching. All right. So are they going to say, no, I can't sell my Tesla to you if you're not part of that group and you show up? Absolutely not. They're going to sell your car all day long. But who are they going to market their product to mostly? It might be something like that. Okay, so we've got United Supermarkets, a local one. I just want to get your feeling on this one. All right? So who do you think United Markets is marketing to? Who do you think they are trying to reach?
Local families, higher income.
Higher income, you said what families?
Local families.
Local families, okay.
They actually change it depending on where it's located.
Sure. Yep, because they'll have like Amigos, might be one thing, the Market Street, they're trying to go after, hey, we're the neighborhood market for you, all right, if it's a supermarket. But you know, one of the things you'll find in all of them is they have a high, they place a lot of importance on service overall, right? So different markets for different, they're not trying to make Amigos successful where they're trying to make a Market Street successful. Those are different campaigns and strategies. Now, the part I want you to understand is there's all kinds of reasons why United does that or Tesla does that, okay? And so I want you to recognize that as a business person, you probably have more access to that information than you realize, all right? So, United, I'll finish, yeah.
I just now thought of like United supermarkets, their locations tend to be in the higher end, like the higher income neighborhood too. I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
Like one on Quaker and 19th, the other one on 50th and Indiana Avenue. And they don't have one like east of Lubbock, like downtown.
They do not. They do have Amigos because their approach there might be a little different, but yes, absolutely. They're not going to be around a bunch of apartment complexes, you know, trying to market to the college students.
Right.
It's not going to work for them, right? It's a different group, and so so there's reasons why they make that choice. Now, funny story about United. I spent some time in Dallas for a while working on a project, and I went to Kroger's. Never been to a Kroger's in my life. I get finished buying the stuff, and I start walking out, and I left my bags there because I was used to United carrying walking you out to the car and talking to you. I didn't even think about the fact that Kroger's doesn't do that, and they were like, "Hey, you left your stuff," and it was like, okay, you don't even sometimes realize how successful that business is making that personal connection. I just had done that so many times that it didn't even dawn on me that Kroger, once you've paid me, I'm done with you kind of type of almost feel a different kind of approach, right? Still perfectly wonderful place to go buy milk and eggs or whatever, but everybody, they have a different focus on what they're trying to accomplish. So Taco Villa, that's another one right here, right? Family, who are they going after?
Burrito lovers.
Burrito lovers? Yeah, but their Burrito Monday deal used to be great, and now they just messed it up. Okay, so is Taco Villa the same place that if you're Abuelos, the same target? They both like Mexican food, right?
Maybe Hispanic populations.
It's gonna be your like quick meal, busy on the go, easy, like fast Tex-Mex.
Yeah, interestingly enough, there's no Taco Villa downtown either anymore. Well, there's one on 19th kind of over by Lubbock High, but then, if you don't go to that one, there's not another one for the other side of town. So maybe it's fast, maybe the food, once again, when I use my example, it could be convenient, it could have high quality, or it could be cheap. Okay, so you're not paying top dollar for it, you're not getting the lowest quality, they're trying to like find some in between, but they make it fast, right? So absolutely. So the reason I have these three different slides is I want you to stop and realize, what time? I'm gonna make sure my time, because I tend to get going. Okay, well, you need to think of that from every angle you can possibly think of, right? So that you got to do on your own, but I'm gonna tell you, there's all kinds of ways to answer that question beyond what you think, right? And so, research data. We all probably have maybe heard of two basic categories of data, primary and secondary. That's pretty familiar to people. People familiar with primary, I love primary. I would do a whole conversation to you on nothing but primary data. I think it is underused. You're doing that in an accelerator program. It's all about primary data. Because here's the thing, that person has already bought that product from you, or they're very likely to, right? So when you're trying to target your meat products, right, you want to know every single thing you can about them. Why did they say yes? What would make them say yes again? What would make them buy more? And you can't just grill somebody like they're in the third degree, right? It's all about a conversation. And so if you can use the people who have already said yes and gave you money, then man, do it. But I will tell you, and this is not an exaggeration, at least 90% of the businesses, some of them successful, that I talk to, spend almost no time with primary data. I had this one lady, she had a very successful boutique, had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of revenue every year. She was so loyal, her client base was so loyal, she made it through COVID with barely a blip. And this is retail. I mean, retail is hard, right? But I asked her, well, what do you use to gather the information from your clients so that you can just kind of engage? Oh, I don't do that. I could not believe She had not done that. She had been successful in spite of that, but I'm thinking, goodness, what could she have been able to accomplish if she just knew some basic things about the customers and why they chose to come to her place, right? So one of the things I did for her is we did a survey on the specific location, which I'll talk about how you can do that. And I said, well, when they come there, how does that compare to a competitor? So she gave me a couple of people in town that are very similar to her, kind of in generally. And so we compared her interaction with her clients using Placer AI data with the competitors, and it was absolutely amazing. What was the difference? Her clients showed up and spent 88 minutes as an average in her place. Well, the other people, 20 minutes or whatever. I'm thinking, wow, they go there as an event almost, right? And so she just, and it's probably the way she engages or the kinds of conversations or interesting things that she had around for them. Who knows? But those people were going to come back. To them, it was almost like going to go see their friend. And, well, I'm here. I'm going to buy a gift for my niece because it's her birthday. And so this is where they all came to be. All right. Primary data, I love it, okay? But that's all I can talk about it today because we're going to run out of time. Secondary data, though, is the main focus of what I wanted to make sure was discussed today. There are so many ways to get clear information, not just my best guess or kind of what I think, right? But clear information. Like my counterpart, Ray, in my office, he used an example that I love. He said he was helping a guy who was wanting to start a Tejano bar. And so that's those numbers, the revenue numbers and the alcohol sales for all places are part of public record. TABC, go in there and he found exactly what every bar in town had. He figured out, he could see exactly what every Tejano bar had. And then this guy said, you know what, man, I can get at least half of the bottom person on that list. I know I can. So it gave him a target. He knew, hey, this is not me just hoping for the best number possible. It is a legitimate, achievable goal, right? And he used hard data. I'm telling you, you go to a funder, you could say, if you're looking at a business plan and you've got specifics and say 1,600 pools or 3 Tejano places and and the range for revenue is so and so and so and so, and I'm going to add this to the service and I can do that. You paint a picture for the person who might be providing funding for you that is going to win out than just the person that says, hey, I'm gonna sell to everybody. Everybody's my client. Everybody's my customer. I get that. That's true technically, but not in practice. Okay, so all kinds of other types of interesting things. Census Bureau. Let me tell you that one of the things I did with this, since I used the pool guy as an example before, I looked at that neighborhood and we got all the census data we could on that particular neighborhood. In fact, I'll take you to the second piece. This little handout right here, I talked about the different ones. I'm going to show you, it's kind of fun. Go to the second page. So Ray and I like to talk about Ray. Ray's a fun guy. So on the second page, these are not categorizations we figured out, and there's different resources and different databases. But look at the little categorizations. Ray and I think if we ever have to name a company softball team or something, we can just pick one here. So you can say, hey, I am Unspoiled Splendor, whatever, right? Or I am part of the Steadfast Conventionalist subgroup, okay? So these are nationally categorized groups of target customers, really. You can think of them as target customers. And so what we do is, depending on the situation, right, you will find out which of these targets, take a look at something, there's plum hilarious, right? So there's a flower power kinds of stuff, and there's like Heritage Heights, all kinds of, they all have, if you'll notice, I just gave you a couple for taste, they'll have a whole profile on that particular subgroup, and they'll even, in the same report, you can figure out how do I market to that subgroup. It'll give you all kinds of great information, all right? So what I did there is we figured out what is the primary 2 or 3 targets, these little subgroups right here, that is found in that group. Now he did everything that made sense, showed up where they were, helped be part of community events, volunteered, he did all that too. But in the meantime, he tailored his marketing to the subgroup that was specifically kind of determined by the demographics of that location, all right? So what's interesting also, he did it was a whole neighborhood. That's a little different because you're using Census Bureau. But like if you'll notice, we have the SBDC, the Placer AI stuff, and SBDC Net. I can take a particular location. I love to do this because I'll say, hey, I want to open a coffee shop. That happens sometimes, right? So, all right, find the coffee shop you like. You're going to be a little better than them, right? We know you are. That's the whole reason you're here. So let's get the address of that coffee shop. okay? And let's see what kind of traffic they've got. Placer AI, as scary as it is, uses your smartphone data to tell us all kinds of crazy things. It tells us where you went before you went to the coffee shop. It tells you where you went after the coffee shop. It tells you 88 minutes at the ladies' boutique. It tells you how much that person spends when they show up. Now, how do they do that? Not everybody uses Apple Pay, but enough do that they can extrapolate out the information and say, the average person will spend 88 minutes and spend $122 at your boutique, and they tend to show up 5 times a year. You will know crazy amounts of data just because you have and that could be on the competitor, not you, but it tells you where you might be able to, what you can gauge as, you know, well, I'm gonna be able to tackle that. I think I'll be able to do that, right? So I always suggest, okay, whether it's a location you want to maybe take on or it's a competitor, let's see what's out there, right? So I had the guy at the coffee shop just recently, and he, you know, I could look at Starbucks. Is he gonna compete with Starbucks? No, that's not a reasonable comparison, but I gave it to him so he could see just how hard it would be. Why? So he would have realistic expectations. He cannot have as much traffic as Starbucks, probably, most of the time. He's going to have to find himself a very profitable some other place, and here's how he needs to get there, right? So we used the Placer AI, and in this particular instance, he completely eliminated an option he was considering for his business because they were, whenever he looked at who showed up, they weren't the people he thought would be most likely to spend. Because I can also get you industry data, completely not connected to anything in Lubbock or anything very close to what's happening. I can just pull up financial benchmarks on every coffee shop, and I can tell you they spend 38% on labor, they spend X amount on cost of goods sold, and you will know kind of where you're going to be. Now, you may be better than that sometimes because people can sometimes find a way to slice off some expenses, but you're not going to be dramatically different than 1,100 other coffee shops that, you know, it's going to be somewhere around there. And so in his case, he realized, man, I got to be at a place where I'm going to get younger people. He was trying to appeal to a younger audience. And why? Because he was younger. The things he wanted to do to keep people there and interested were going to be more geared to the younger crowd. And so he completely eliminated an option. Okay, so now if he didn't know that, because he loved the other place, but if he hadn't been able to look at the Placer AI info and recognize that, you know what? As great as this place looks, I don't know if it's really going to speak to my target, right? Now, here's the tricky part. Could he still have a successful business coffee shop maybe there? Maybe, yes, absolutely. But it may not be targeting the people he wants. I had the conversation in the last week or so where I was trying to help a lady understand the numbers a little bit, and she basically said, but I don't want to work with that group. You know, she just said, I've done it and it's too hard and I don't want to. I want to do this. I said, okay, well, here's what you need to, if that's what you want to do, we need to change your strategy a little bit, because if you don't, you're going to end up getting more and more people that fit this category, and you're going to maybe spend more time than you want, and it's going to take more cost or more labor or whatever, right? So this is why you spend the time in the backside. Once again, how you specifically reach them, man, get a hold of these wonderful professionals that you can see here who can help you have a message that pops or helps you just really see what works, as they have tons of data about what kinds of things drive the traffic and what can you do in a cost-effective manner. I'm telling you, emails get a bad rap, but emails under certain circumstances are the absolute best way to reach the people you want. It may be a long-term play. You know, you're not going to get it may be, you got to spend some time locating. Maybe you have to kind of lay some groundwork. I had this one person who spent all sorts of times, they went to these different conferences, and they had tables kind of like what we have here, right? And I said, well, but there's not a lot of a crowd there. Kind of help me understand, why do you always go back and you only have maybe 150 people that are going to come to this conference? He goes, listen, those 150 people have paid my kid through college. Right? I'm going to show up every single time they show up. I'm going to be there because maybe they're my customer now, maybe they're not now, maybe they will be in the future. You know, he sold financial products, right? He said, I'm not, they're my target, right? He just realized that and learned that over time. You can have the same type of connection, and that's what I would encourage you to think about. The part that I hope you get from our conversation is that there's probably so much more out there than you know. Right? And you can use, like I said, Census Bureau stuff is great. But you know, it's only so good. You have to match it up with, well, what am I seeing when I look at this? So like, I mean, I didn't get to this in a second, but I didn't get this a second ago. But like, you'll take on the end, I showed you, you can have like, suppose the profile showed you a power elite. One of your main target people that come through your area is a power elite. Okay, so now I don't know if I included that in the description or not, but you know, specifically, but there is an entire Power Elite description. It'll tell you how to market it. And then you just have general information about how old they are, how much money they make, how they went, when they went to school. I guarantee Tesla knows exactly how much their target customer makes per year, and they know exactly how much education they have. And they know, and they probably have 2 or 3 targets. I got the young crowd who wants to be kind of new and try, you know, kind of early adopter for some technology maybe. And then I got these other people who are environmental conscious or something. Who knows? They may have 6 target customers, and they're not going to mix their messages to the different ones. They're going to fine tune everything around that, okay? So this is what, you know, and like I said, this is just one database. I like to use them because the names crack me up, you know. You know, you can look at them and see. But what in what we do then is when we put together a business plan or just help you with a strategic plan, I actually prefer to do it when you're not trying to get money, because you know, you do a business plan and part of the audience is the bank, right? And so that's helpful, and you need funding. But I like people to do it completely independent of that as a business person, just trying to understand their own business better, right? And more importantly, what I like to try to do with that information is set very measurable kind of goals, okay? So like, this just gives you an example. Like, it'll take segments. Like I gave you one. There's different kind of programs. Like if I'm doing auto repair, you can break it down to the specific type of auto repair. I had somebody who was doing auto repair. They brought it down to fleet work for commercial, business to business, not individuals. And then they brought it down even further and said it was going to be emergency roadside repair and, you know, to help fleets. And so they basically took their entire business around that idea. Now they are not, you know, they're not going to say no if somebody rolls a truck up there and wants them to fix it, but they spent all of their time cultivating the relationships they needed to be able to meet their goal. And they always had business. Their big challenge as a business had nothing to do with customers. It had to do with staffing, you know, finding, you know, specialized talent. All right. So like these are some of the kinds of numbers and data, you know, you look at the industry at a glance. So like some of this is great. We include some of this in your business plan, but I would say in the strategic plan that I'm going to help you with, you know, we're not going to sit there, you know, these are snapshots, but you know, how important is it, right? Like this, I'm talking about I did the automatic mechanic thing. And so you can just specialize. There's just all sorts of things, right? The other thing people don't do, let me make sure of my time here. Good, I got a few more minutes, all right? So we can use those kinds of data to help sort of put together a framework of a strategy. It's all about measuring. I mentioned, it is staggering to me how often people will try something. It might even be legitimate, and they miss the boat in understanding exactly how successful it was. Okay, but if you figure out your return on investment, everybody thinks about in that in general sense, but why do you not necessarily consider your return on your investment on campaign? You know, and what they'll often do is it's hard to sometimes get to the data, and sometimes you can't get to what you want, but they will think about it too big. Well, as long as I'm spending X amount in advertising, I'm getting X amount of a growth in revenue, everything's good. Well, sure, but you know, it's all about prioritization or, you know, altering your method, or maybe that target, like the guy that did the medical stuff, he'd spent all kinds of money, spent several years having a successful business, and he realized, dang, I need to target this group. This is like fish in a barrel. This is so much easier. This is so much better. So he completely shifted what he's doing, and it absolutely his whole business is different. It's been, you know, altered in a very, very positive way very quickly. And he didn't even realize it was effective. So even when you're used to what's working, I would suggest let's visit about it and test out new things. And then measure what you're trying, because if you don't measure it, you can't manage what you don't know. And the only way you're going to know is if you're measuring it and you can test it out, right? Even if it's not a perfect science, it's better than just hoping, right? Now, competition. Let me tell you about competition. I'm going to tell you 2 things. One, if you do something really cool and really interesting, someone else is going to try to do it soon after, right? You know, it's hard to be brand new and completely unique without someone, man, yeah, I like what she's doing, but you know, I'm going to do it too, but I'm going to make it sure that I'm going to drop it off at their house. I do laundry service or whatever, and this person, she seems busy, she seems fine, I love her to death. But you know what? I'm going to go take some customers who can't really even go drop it off and pick it up. I'm going to go drop it off to their house. And so the next thing you know, they're doing the same thing you are with a slightly different bin, and now you're having a competition you wasn't expecting, right? So here's what I'll tell you about competition. Assume that everything you're doing is being watched and looked at. But more importantly, watch and look at what everyone else is doing, okay? Because you can learn all kinds of great things about new ideas or what's not working sometimes. You know, if you're watching routinely your main competitors. Now you have direct competitors, but you also have indirect competitors, right? You may be doing something that doesn't have anybody directly, you're going up against, but maybe you do on a shelf. There might be 4 or 5 things and you need to appeal to them. They're going to make a decision between these 4 things. And so that might be a direct competition case, right? In your case, about the meat product, you may not be having a direct competitor, but there are other people trying to solve the same problem as you, and they may do it differently. They may not do it with meat, they may do it with some sort of meal replacement drink, or they may do it with something else, and they're gonna swoop in and say, nope, I get what you're doing over there, it's great, but I can give you a better answer, it's a little cheaper, and next thing you know, that competitor kind of took out some of your customers. So you wanna think about direct and indirect, and you want to look at the websites. I noticed, I hate typos, but I have one up there, so go to as many industry websites as you can. First, go to every website you can that's local, right? Might as well. Need to know what's going on around you, all right? But just if you're doing a dog bakery, check out every dog bakery site you can find in any town that's sort of close to the same size as Lubbock, all right? It may not be the best way for you to get to some of the market info we're talking about, but it can give you some great information all the same, right? And it can give you, okay, you see people adding this service. I never thought about doing that. And so it can give you, to me, it can sometimes even help you keep from wasting a lot of time. You realize, oh, there's more people doing that than I thought. Okay, so hey, I'm not gonna focus too much on that. Somebody asked me, I'll do it. But here's where I want a bookkeeping service. Oh, here's what I'll do. I'll do taxes. I'll do this. I'll do that. And so, what they really, if they looked at the competition, they may realize what they need to be is an on-site bookkeeper in a particular industry. Right? They're going to do convenience stores or something like that. And they're going to learn all they can to become an expert on convenience stores. Then they market themselves as a bookkeeper for that industry. There's a convenience store and like 3 of them on every 4 corners just about, right? So like you could go, you sit there and find the people you need, but then your competition, you're not competing against the other person necessarily, right? Because you've kind of given yourself a differentiator, right? So that's what I like ask people to think about with regards to competition. And then you look everywhere they're at, right? Because hey, they may have figured out that interesting way to engage, right? There's a lot of people that will do community outreach and things like that, and so, when there's really, really cool events and you want to be part of that, and there's somebody doing a fundraiser, and I mean, just go put yourself in that same spot, right? Partly because it's a good thing to do and it's a good way to be a good human in society, right? But while you're there, people ask you, hey, what do you do? And you get to talk about it. You're not going in there, hey, I'm going to roll out a presentation and do a sales pitch for the next hour. You're just making yourself available, and then you've got yourself a tailored message for that group, how you can help them, because it's all about, what was the 3rd and 4th thing on the list, was solving their problem, right? But then at a price that makes sense to you and to them. I'll say that some of the other businesses that I've kind of talked to struggle with the last part. They think to be competitive, they got to be cheaper. I talked about the car, auto place. Okay, so this guy had done this kind of work his whole life. And then he says, well, shoot, they always charge like, $175 an hour. I'll charge $100 and they'll be cheaper. I'll be cheaper than everybody, and I'll make more money than I ever made because I've always made $25, $30 an hour. This would be a winning combination, right? Well, you could probably guess what happened in that case, right? He charged $100 an hour, got a big old group of clients and customers. A year later, he's like, man, I got all this money coming, I'm making nothing. I'm making less money than I was before. What's happening? And his whole issue was really around, he was pricing himself too cheap. He wasn't aware of all the costs that went into what he was, you know, his service. So some of it is, there's other things. We can help you with all that component, but today I was wanting you to just be aware of how you get the message in front of the right people. And you got to be as creative. The fun part about that is it can constantly change. If you're not really getting what you want out of one bit of effort, 2 weeks later, you can be doing something different. And things will unfold, you know, if you're attempting, they will unfold and open up to you as a business owner. All right? So, gosh, I have 150. I nailed it. Okay, I was thinking 150. So tell me, what I'd like to do though, and I'm going to go to the last slide just because I want to make sure you understand that right here, all right, you spread the word, all right? Be smart about it. Try to figure out why you're reaching out to people that you've got. It does work. Sometimes that doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean it's going to work the first time. That doesn't mean, you know, it's obvious exactly the steps you might need to take. But if you're trying to target your message to specific people for a specific reason, you'll either learn that didn't work and the next one will. And if you keep plugging along, right, you'll find the pathway that can make you be successful. And then you wear that path out. I mean, there is no reason to reinvent the wheel. You know, you can always try a second thing and test it, but always make sure you keep focused on the one that you know is working. And then also it's important to stay consistent. I haven't really mentioned that too much, but whatever message you got, you know, like, so your target customer may change, right? And you may change the way you reach them, you know, individually. But what you're providing, you know, knowledgeable, skilled bookkeeping, right, doesn't need to change. People need to always recognize this is what you provide, right? And your reputation. So you're not changing your whole everything about you. You're just changing who you're making sure is aware of your particular, thank you, your particular service or product, okay? So that is kind of tricky to think about because sometimes you do have to change pretty dramatically, right? But like the guy with the insurance, he didn't change what he was doing. He did certainly fine tune his message and he went to the particular type of employee, you know, but he still was going to provide knowledgeable, personable, one-on-one service and was going to be available for a phone call anytime somebody asked. So that person knew that, right? And if you go and you know, that needs to stay consistent. Right? Plus also there's importance of consistency about your messages overall. If you go to one community event in a neighborhood and it's kind of working, you don't just not show back up for another year, right? Be consistent and let them see your face. Like the guy in the neighborhood. He literally just drove up and down the street sometimes on the weekend, extra, even though they were doing a few jobs. They just made sure, you know, kind of like the ice cream truck. And they, you know, because the people recognized them and, you know, it was just kind of what he wanted to be seen as, hey, flag me down if you haven't thought about it, I'm here. And that kind of got hard for him to do because it got very busy very quickly. But he still was very consistent with that message. And then, of course, try to make it easy. You don't want to overcomplicate it. You know, you want to test something out. It's hard to measure something if you've got layers of complexity around it. So try something, test it, see what works. Bottom line, test and track your numbers. All right? And you will get to a point when, you know, there is the real legitimate option that maybe your product or service isn't as important to the targets that as you thought. Well, that'll tell you something too. Maybe this business is just, Lubbock's not quite ready for it, right? How many have you heard people say, well, it was ahead of my time? Okay, yeah, you've even got great examples where people like, man, if they'd have tried to do that very same thing 5 years later, they might have been, you know, going like gangbusters. So there's all kinds of reasons why it doesn't work and you shouldn't personalize it, but man, definitely personalize your message to the people that you're talking to. Okay? All right, any other questions? Yes?
So when you're talking about competition, what is your stance on strategic partnerships? Maybe you're both bookkeepers, but one of you really likes the bookkeeping side, but the other one is more on helping people with entities. But you both kind of do some of the same things. What is your view on strategic partnerships with competitors?
That's an absolutely great idea. Okay, so I don't want to overgeneralize, but I will tell you, it is almost always easier for a business to be to find profit in a good partnership like that, to start a whole other line and bring in people and pay out all the expense and try to find your own customers, right? So Absolutely. How many of you think about it is on a personal basis? If someone refers you to somewhere, I don't care if it's a restaurant for a hamburger, you're likely to try it out, right? So if you know, hey, look, I'm good at convenience stores and you're good here, somebody comes in, I'm going to make sure that everybody, I'm going to help them out because it'll come back and help me. I absolutely love those, and the more creative, the better sometimes. So in cases sometimes of indirect competition or direct competition, it may not even be bookkeeping it. You may just find out from your research that people that are in your category travel a lot. So you find a person who has got a travel agency, right? And it's like you throw some things up on your website that they go to, or in reference really cool trips that this person may have. And you can just say, it's just somebody I know, it's somebody I use. And so, but you work out some sort of way to reach their people, and their people reach you. So I do love that, because opening up a whole other division to do something similar that as a competitor's already doing is a hard row, right? Sometimes it's the right thing to do, like the guy with the insurance. He ended up getting 2 or 3 more people doing the same thing because it made obvious sense that could work. But, okay, another example. Suppose he does medical insurance, and somebody else says, well, I want life insurance. This might not be the right example, but somebody does life insurance and supplemental policies and stuff like that. Well, he doesn't really do that, but he don't want to tell his people that he works with he doesn't do that. Instead, he works with somebody who already provides all that information. And then the two of you guys both get to have the same customers. Your customer that you're dealing gets a better, more robust set of options for themselves. And you don't have to go bring somebody in who has that specialty. It's just not necessary.
Referrals work really well after that as well. Just because they couldn't go to you directly, they use the other competitor, but then in turn they mention your name first before they say who they actually use.
Absolutely.
So referrals are really good off of that.
Yep. Yeah.
So this seems like kind of a lifelong thing, like your business, like you're always visiting this data, pulling and readjusting all that. But my idea, I'm literally in the idea stage where it's like passion and prayer.
Okay.
Right. And so like, at what point do I need to, I guess, do I need to have a market viable product like ready before I start seeking into this information and trying to really target an audience? Or do I need to build, does that make sense? Or
Yeah.
do I need to build more around
Okay.
what I think would be good for my target? It's an app, so.
That's an interesting question, because the research can sometimes tell you it's not the right time, right? Or it can tell you that your target's going to be a lot smaller than you thought, or your market. So I wouldn't wait, because you could have wasted a lot of energy on a product that, might be a little tougher to sell than you thought, right? I think where I would direct you to very quickly, instead of some of the secondary data stuff that we've got, focus a ton of time on your primary data. You talk to people who might have any interest. You focus groups. Hey, if you had this kind of thing, what would it mean for you? And you don't have to have a full product. You can just sit there and just ask as many people. I had one guy who was wanting to open a fitness place, a gym, and he spent like every Saturday for like 2 months at the local Tractor Supply store, asking everyone that came in and out about what they wanted out of a fitness place, right? And so he learned, now this is not, apps a little bit different, but he learned all kinds of stuff about what they wanted and what they didn't and what hours they wanted to be open and, what was important to them. And so he's, wow, it kind of changed part of what I thought I might try to focus on. It changes priorities a little bit, right? So in your case, you may want to kind of mix it up a little bit. I would focus a lot on the primary, but likewise, you do kind of have at some point, the minute you feel like you have an MVP that you can work with, well, you want to get it out and start seeing how, what similar apps are out there and just how they use it, and that kind of data will be there. It'll be available.
Okay.
But yeah, goodness, it is a process. It does continue forever. It really does. Any other questions? All right. So I appreciate it. I hope this kind of helped give you a different spin or thought about marketing in general. It is, like I said, the first time I've ever kind of tried to do a class on just secondary data or why it's important and what you're trying to get out of it. I will close that in the business plans that we work on, we provide, we try to give you as much of that data as possible. And we've had really good ideas that people just decided to pass on because they've done the research. And they thought, I like this idea, but I also like these other two, or I'm going to kind of do this instead and focus here. And okay, that to me, I feel like my job is, I'm not saying I want to make sure you don't open a business. I want you to open as many as possible, but sometimes it's about opening the right business at the right time and making sure that it's going to be the thing you want, right? That's going to make you happy for the long term.
And are these also?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, these right here, these are just some of the workshops, but notice the QR code at the top will give you an entire list of stuff going on in our region. There are webinars that you can log in at lunch and get for free. There's all kinds of really good workshops. We have, just to give you an idea, the one at the bottom is a QuickBooks, very, very popular, but that one, we do have to bring somebody in, so there is a charge for that one. Almost everything we do is at low or no cost, but that one does have a little bit of a fee, but it's usually needed. People want it. And then there is not on this list, there is an entire 6-session Tuesday evening Zoom class I'm doing on financial statements. So it's not about this, but people like, oh, and I'm about to go do a financial statement class here in just a second. And so, but those, that one is a USDA grant. Usually people pay hundreds of dollars for that, and it's a USDA grant, but so it's open to anybody, but you just need to let me know because we can't just open it to the public, and then we have a bunch of licenses that are tied up with people who aren't committed. But if you want to know a little bit more about how to read your finances, figure out how to do what your break-even statement, break-even analysis would look like, or what your cash flow statement is, and some people just need help in that respect. We're doing that class. But we always have classes that are going on, and so please just check. I would suggest, throw it up on your bookmarks, look at it every 2 or 3 weeks. We add stuff all the time. Some of it is really fun, like, how to use a website to drive traffic, or how to use SEO to get the right results you need. And so you might take what you can. They're free resources, right? Already being paid for by federal government, federal dollars, state dollars, and economic development dollars. So you might as well take advantage of it. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank